From the Smith Center in Chapel Hill, this is TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and alongside me, as he always is, THI publisher Andrew Jones. Andrew, about an hour ago, saw Carolina, we saw Clemson coming to Chapel Hill, finally get a win over UNC, 79-76 for the Tigers. AJ, there's a lot of things we could talk about. I think the first thing we need to go into in terms of why Carolina lost this game is the way they ended it. 155 left, Carolina's up 10. Ends up going to overtime. Carolina ends up losing in overtime by 3 points. AJ, let's talk about that 155 stretch where obviously Clemson cut the deficit from 10 to tying the game and going to OT, like I said. What went wrong for Carolina there? It seems like mistakes. We'll talk about Coach Williams, some of the mistakes he blames on himself later, but a lot of things, kind of went wrong in that stretch for Carolina and ultimately led to the defeat in a lot of ways.
It's hard to imagine a 2-minute stretch of basketball in this program's history being worse than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
3 turnovers in which they couldn't get the ball in bounds. One right in front of their bench by the guy who's playing point guard today. And when you blow a 10-point lead in what was clearly a must-win game, a game in which for 38 minutes this team had the right energy, they were loose, they defended well enough, they played well enough offensively. B-Rob was on fire, Garrison Brooks had a big second half. Baycott looked like the kid that people thought he was going to be this year. It looked like a day that this team had found itself something that it can build off of. And in the last 2 minutes, all of that went away.
Yeah, vanished. Yeah.
Roy even said after the game that what happened during that stretch was similar to what happened when Pitt made its push the other night, and the Tar Heels got super tight. And we talked on the video the other night about they'd be tight, but they weren't tight. They were loose. They were ready to play. Yeah. They knew that they had to take matters in their hands, and they did that for 38 minutes. They didn't do it for the last 2. And part of Roy's comments earlier in the week about being the least gifted team he's ever coached at UNC, this club does not have the firepower, the talent. They don't have that ingredient to not put a team away for 40 minutes. They have to do it for 40 minutes.
Absolutely.
And Clemson did not play that well tonight.
No, they did not.
The Tigers didn't. I mean, Carolina should have had a bigger lead in the first half when Clemson was like 4-24, whatever, from the field. But the Tar Heels were only up like 10 or 12.
Kind of stuck around,
they didn't put them away like most UNC teams would have. And then that last minute 55 was from a sports writer who's done this for 24 years. I haven't seen many things like that, given all the things at stake. That was a colossal meltdown, and I would say that I've seen 3, 4, maybe 5. I can't even think of it at the top of my head right now, but I've only seen something like that a few times. I feel bad for the kids, because they're the ones that had to deal with this. They're the ones that did it. But this was, we keep talking about low points, and I think in one of the videos a couple of games ago you asked, is this the low point? Well, this has to be the low point.
Absolutely has to.
This has to be the low point. Kind of know where to go now but up. This was a terrible loss in a season in which there are 8 of them now, and you could argue that was the worst 2 minutes in UNC basketball history.
Yeah, and I alluded to it in the beginning of the video, but in Roy Williams' post-game press conference, obviously, he basically came out and blamed the loss on himself. I mean, point-blank period. He said it was his fault. What he was referring to is he calls a 30-second timeout with, I believe, 12 seconds left on the clock in the second half. Brandon Robinson's due to shoot 2 free throws. And in that timeout, Roy talks about what defense they're going to do, switching on the screens, blah, blah, blah. But he forgot to mention that he wanted his team to foul because B-Rob comes in here, hits both of those free throws. Carolina's up by 3. Carolina doesn't foul. Roy Williams goes in his press conference, like I mentioned, says one of his biggest mistakes of his career, kind of blames the loss on himself. AJ, we saw a lot of people on Twitter during overtime saying, why didn't Carolina foul? Why didn't they foul? And it was a valid question. Then for Roy to come out and say, well, that was my fault. I should have told them to foul. I mean, just kind of sums up the game and how this team has been over the past few weeks. Absolutely,
This has been a bad week for Roy Williams.
It really has,
Whatever side you fall on with the gifted comments, and I happen to agree with him. I do think this is the least gifted team.
No question about it.
North Carolina. It's no slight to the kids. He never said they're bad. Never said they stink or anything like that. Just said it's the least gifted. However, that hasn't resonated well. No. And today, to see this guy whom I've covered close to 500 times come in, fight back the emotion a couple times and take it on himself, and he truly believes that he wasn't trying to cover for his kids. And I even asked him the first question, because he really went on about not telling them to call the
he's emotional,
foul. And I even asked him, the only reason you were in that situation was because the team couldn't get the ball in bounds.
Three turnovers.
What was on the press offense, and the first 4 or 5 answers, and I think the last 2, he took about maybe 8 questions in the presser. He ended them blaming himself for not doing that. You know what? He's right in that coach is supposed to. If that's their philosophy,
yeah,
he's got to communicate that to the team.
Yeah, no question.
But the team also knows that's the philosophy. Brandon Robinson told us after the game, "Look, this is my 4th year. I know that's what we do." Garrison Brooks, this is what we do, but none of them thought about it at the time. Garrison said, "I was just thinking about the switching."
Yeah,
that's
exactly
what they were thinking
said,
about. They weren't thinking about fouling. So that's what happened. Roy's taking the blame. Let's be honest. If it wasn't for the meltdown, inbounding the inability to inbound the ball, Roy never would have had to forget to tell it. It wouldn't have been a situation to forget telling his team to foul there.
They shouldn't have been in that situation.
The kids, to their credit, defended Roy, said it was on them. Never should have been in that situation. Andrew Platek, very much so. If you're a Carolina fan and you struggle with some of the things after a game like this, reading our content, watching our videos, watch the players. Watch Platek, watch B-Rob, listen to what they had to say. They defended their coach because ultimately they're more right than Roy. Roy should have told them that, but he didn't because he never should have been in that situation.
Never should have been in that situation. Absolutely not. And that situation obviously led to Clemson getting a win. They improved to 1-59 in Chapel Hill, which is, it really is kind of crazy when you think about it. The fact that Clemson had never won in Chapel Hill ever. 0-59.
They've had some pretty good teams.
They've had a lot better teams than what we saw today. Let's put it that way. But AJ, the streak's over.
Coast Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. Roy Williams said it in his Friday presser that, it's a streak that he doesn't like to focus on. It's going to end someday. It's got nothing to do with anybody that's watching this video. It's got nothing to do with us, basically, is what he said. But it ended today. And, it's one thing to talk about it when you're 59-0 against a team, but now Carolina's 59-1. The streak's over. 3 losses in a row at home. I mean, AJ, I know you've covered Carolina, not only Carolina, but just sports writer for a long time. Did you ever think the streak was going to end? I mean, I figured you had to think it would eventually.
I thought it would in 2008 when Ty Lawson missed the game and Quentin Thomas started the point and Tyler Hansbrough had the big toenail coming off and the blood-soaked shoe that they had to change the socks and stuff.
That's some crazy game.
That was an overtime game. Carolina trailed by 11 with 3 minutes left and came back and won that game. They sent it to overtime and they won. Flipped the script today. So 2008, 2002, I covered 22 of that team's 28 games. They went 8-20. And one of the ones I covered was in this building when a 7-18 Carolina team hit 16-32 from 3-point range and blew out a bad Clemson team.
Yeah.
At one point tonight, we're sitting up there on press row, and Carolina's up around 10, right around that sequence, right before things unraveled. And I'm hammering away my column.
Yeah, you were banging it out, yeah.
I was banging stuff out, and I've deleted all of that.
Yeah, I saw him
all the stuff I'd written up to that point. I actually thought to myself, it ain't happening now. This is never going to happen. I mean, this is an unbelievable curse.
It really
Clemson has, and Carolina could just come out here and flap, like a peacock with this team.
Talent doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They'll beat Clemson. But
it ended. And Clemson's celebration was one of the most amazing things. I've covered Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. I've covered a bunch of Final Fours. I've covered all kinds of championship games in my life. I've covered 53, 54 Duke Carolina games, maybe even more than that.
Probably.
This was one of the most amazing things I've seen.
Absolutely.
I've covered all 4 major professional sports. Okay, I covered Mike Messina one night with a perfect game won out in the 9th inning. That was pretty dramatic stuff. Okay, this was more dramatic. This was more amazing, and whatever your allegiances are, you got to feel good for the Clemson kids that they did this, and what's a rough season for them. And really bad for the Carolina kids because it's like they're taking on so much water right now. We're not going to address it in this video, but you got to wonder what they got left.
Exactly.
This was a terrible loss on so many levels for UNC basketball.
79-76 defeat for North Carolina. Clemson getting their first win in Chapel Hill. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Thank you guys for watching. As always, obviously a week off for Carolina basketball. In terms of games, they're going to Pittsburgh next weekend. I believe it's next Saturday, right?
Yep.
AJ will be up there, obviously. So be sure to stay locked to TarIllustrated.com. If you like this video, be sure to like it, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.